and I was all stitched up. And the doctor said if it had gone any deeper in my stomach, I would have died.
I mean, there are many people that when things go sour, they freak out and they go off the deep end. And look what your dad instilled in you. And that's an amazing gift for life.
So I went to Laurier on a football scholarship. And but what I realized was because I didn't grow up from a lot of wealth.
Yeah.
Because I actually paid my own way through university. Everybody knows everything about you before they meet you. You wrote your vision, your organizational vision. I just saw you yell at somebody on the floor. So do you want to start giving me some kind of a story of how busy you are? Let me go get my pillow and my blanket. It's story time. You can tell me how busy you are. Nobody cares how busy you are. Tom Peters said, you either become distinct or extinct. The choice is yours. And he also said, if you don't like change, you like irrelevancy even less. I love Tom Peters. The guy was nuts, right? What you had to be trained to interrupt people, but not to damage people.
So tell me, what is your current philosophy of life?
I get calls at 11:30 at night. You just changed my life. And these are professionals.
Hey, hello everybody. It's George Watson here with Reinvention Unlimited podcast. And I've got another episode 3 today. This is with a good friend of mine. This podcast is really, I've really endeavored to make it different. I'm more interested in what shaped a person, the story of a person's life. I remember I had a coach one time who said, George, every time you're in front of somebody, they're that 5-year-old kid who was scared of like mom going away forever. They're that 10-year-old kid who's afraid of fitting in. Everyone you meet has experienced those type of things, and really who they are today has been shaped by a lot of things, their environment, their parenting, friends, things like that. So I'm really interested in people's lives, and also at some point in our life, we come to a crossroad where we can either take one avenue or another and reinvent ourselves. Reinvention is really about creating a whole new direction for our lives, changing. We're going in one direction and we're going now in the next direction, right? A different direction. So that's really what this is about. And we're going to have people on here from all walks of life. And today, my guest is Neil Thornton. So Neil is president of the Thornton Group of Companies. He was actually the first business coach I met who actually did business coaching legitimately. My weekend with him back in 2004, it changed my business career and my life forever. So it was really great. So I'm really excited to introduce Neil to you today. He's become a good friend of mine. Neil has a passion. One thing I'll say is he has a passion for business and leadership. And we share that passion. We're both students of business. He's an accomplished author, speaker, facilitator, consultant, business coach. He really specializes in strategic planning. He does sales development with people. Some of his sales classes that he shared with me just make me laugh, and hopefully we'll get to some of that today when we talk about his career later on, and he'll make you laugh as well. The thing about Neil that's amazing when he works with companies is how he's able to help them build the culture that they really want. You know, he's good at marketing, and also he does some recruiting for these companies as well. So he's been doing this work, forget this, 20 years. So he knows a little something about that. You can't keep doing the same thing for 20 years and fail, right? So doing the same thing for 20 years, you should be getting better. And Neil has definitely gotten better. He's really, really good at it. He's a very generous human being. He's a giver. I admire that about him. And in that vein, he's made a commitment to really share the ideas, insights, and trends that he's learned to whoever will listen. And he has an uncanny ability to also read people. He sees through what seems like insurmountable situations, and this makes him one of the most highly sought after coaches and consultants in his field. He's got a unique understanding for understanding the psychology behind employee behavior as well. He understands how to employee engagement, corporate culture, vision, these type of things. His direct approach, which is the thing I love about him the most, is he has a direct approach. So his direct approach hits straight to the heart in an honest and direct point. He does it without being a jerk. He's, I call it the kind truth. Neil has an ability to tell the kind truth to people. But today, we're going to go behind the veil of the professional Neil Thornton. Right? We're going to meet the man behind the hype. What happened in Neil's life, right, to shape and form this amazing business influencer, this thought leader? What happened? I want to find that out. And I would be remiss if I didn't end with saying he's also a family man. He's raised two beautiful, wonderful girls. He's still married to his sweetheart, Andrea, which I'm sure we'll hear about as we dive and explore the world of Neil Thornton. You can contact Neil at his website at thorntongroup.ca, and I'll have that scrolling on the screen as well, so you can check that out, and I'll put it in the show notes as well. So without further ado, let's welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Neil Thornton. Always reading. Always reading. Come on, man. You're in an interview now. Come on. I should have had that music that you had to that one gig you did. What was that tune playing in the background?
Oh, the Muppets.
The Muppets. Yeah.
Well, I'm about to go on in front of hundreds of people, and they're like, "We gotta have an entry." I'm like, "The Muppet. Here comes the music."
That's so awesome.
How you doing? You know what you taught me?
What?
Stop taking yourself so seriously.
That's right.
And you can resign your position as general manager of the universe anytime you want.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's so good. That's so
good.
Hey,
thanks for that intro, George. This is tough. This is hard. This is going to be tough today.
Well, why?
Don't tell my story. That? I'm used to working with other people.
Yeah, we're used to having that mask on, right? We're professionals. We have, and
give people tools and ideas.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's okay to tell a story.
Yeah, and I really want to honor that in your life, and it's there's something magical that happens when we go back and remember where we came from. There's a certain humility that we're reminded about. And also, I think you're going to be more of an influence than you think going back and telling that story. You're going to really touch a lot of lives. People that wouldn't normally be turned on by your business expertise, they're going to see you in a different light, right? And that's important for relationship and also for credibility as well. So,
buddy, thanks, man.
So let's dive in. So tell me, where were you born?
Well, we call it the Hammer.
The Hammer.
Hamilton, Ontario.
Oh, Hamilton.
My Cats, home of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and I spent some time in training camp there, and that was part of how I grew up. But I was born in Hamilton, and I grew up, as you're probably imagining there in Vancouver, as I grew up in the country in a little town called Binbrook, and at that time it was just a small little corner. And today it's one of the fastest growing areas because it's that urban growth outside of Hamilton, Ontario. And I'm within reach of Toronto. We call it the GTA, and
okay,
that's now growing exponentially. And I'm in the Niagara region, so I don't have any wine with me today. I should have had a glass of wine, but
exactly.
The Niagara region's beautiful, but we're seeing such incredible change, incredible growth. But my heart is in Hamilton. I still do a lot of business there.
So what was your parents like when you grew up? What would your mom and dad do?
Mavis and Bob, those are great names from the 40s, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
And my mother was always very, very intelligent. She worked with a legal firm. And
oh, wow.
She's one of those people that managed everything. So my mother was always very, very intelligent. I always liked listening to her. And then my dad, who probably had one of the biggest impacts on me, was a mechanic for 40 years. And he worked for and on very large trucks. And
okay.
That was actually part of my upbringing, was going through high school. I remember that, going through high school, going to football practice, and then being on a city bus. And every night I would drive to this truck shop. It was huge, one of the biggest in North America. And I swept floors. And I never thought anything of it. Like it was just what we did.
Yeah.
And then I made enough money to, as we all have, is you buy your first car. And are you ready for this first car? It was a 1976 AMC Matador. Like the
AMC.
AMC Matador. And we called it the Butterscotch Beetle because it was like butterscotch and white.
Yeah.
And it was one of the greatest accomplishments was paying for, like, Mike, I didn't grow up with wealth. And and I've always found that's what makes for a real successful person is somebody who doesn't come from wealth, but somebody who creates it.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people are right now. Is
you got that from your father?
Yeah, I got it from both my parents. It's it was back. I was born in the late 60s, and I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and it was different. Like it was different times, but we'd be outside. Like my first job was catching chickens.
Tell me a story about that.
Oh my God! So if you want something that's going to mature you walk into a chicken barn at 11 o'clock at night, load 1,400 chickens into a truck.
I have no idea what that's like.
The next day you go to school because I never missed school.
11 o'clock at night. How long did it take you to do that?
You did about 3 or 4 hours. You do it at night because it was cooler, and you never did it during the day. Wow. And so we're out there at night. You can't see anything, and you can't turn the lights on because what'll happen is we grew up in the country, so this is all country talk. But what happens at a chicken farm? If you turn lights up, they'll all spook. They all run to the corner and they'll suffocate.
Oh my! So
you had to have quick hands, and you're running around the dark and you're bumping into stuff. It was such a great experience. And then I did that for a few years, and then I was 15 years old. My dad come into my room on Saturday morning. He goes, "Come on, let's go. You're going into the truck shop, and you're gonna sweep floors." Okay, here I am.
See, how you probably used to getting up early at this time, right? 15?
Oh no, I was like a teenager. I'd sleep on the roof of your car if I could. I was just, I remember it was the thing that my dad and my mom really instilled into me was work ethic.
Right on.
And even to this day, work ethic is, I was just, before this, I was listening to Larry Wingett. We both love Larry Wingett.
Love that guy.
Like, it's called work for a reason. And today, you look at what makes for success. It's people who are willing to work.
Yeah.
And there's only two things that'll ever get in the way of anybody's goals is fear and ego.
Yeah.
And you and I both know in this world of coaching, it's what would be possible if you weren't afraid. Or the biggest thing limiting you is you. Are you prepared to get yourself out of the way? And not everybody, most people will cosmetically say, yeah. But really, you challenge them. No, really, are you serious? Can you get yourself out of the way? And it goes back to how you and I study listening.
Yeah.
And are you prepared to listen for what's possible instead of probable? Most of us listen from the past, right? We know this. Most of us listen from a right or wrong, or should or shouldn't be. We listen from what we already know, which means innovation's so hard for us. And I think people often say, is leadership born or environmental? And I'm still very environmental, but I'm still very much about some of the lessons I've learned growing up. It's okay to be kind. And it really is all about how you treat people.
Yeah. Where did you get that from?
Regardless of your beliefs. And George, I've told you in our calls together, there are two mottos that I always go by. Number one, it's everybody's battling a battle we don't know about. And number two, it's everybody is a teacher to you. Are you prepared to listen?
So, okay, now you're getting into the world of coaching and things like that. Let's bring you back.
I know you.
Your childhood. I'm going to bring you back. You told me. You said you're going to have to be relentless on this.
No, let's do it.
You're like a wild horse, man. I gotta grab you and bring you back and break you. So, how many children in your family, and where were you in the lineup?
Well, two. My sister Kelly is 3 years older than I am.
Oh wow! So you're the youngest of two.
I'm the youngest, and that was our typical family, right? mom and dad, 2 kids. We always had a pet, right? We always had dogs. And family was important to me growing up.
So what were some family traditions that you guys engaged in as a family together?
Well, we did normally we normally do, and I remember, hopping into a car. Remember in the '70s, you hop in a car and you go down to Disney World, and you're lying in the back window, and when you're young, you take that stuff for granted.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older with kids, you realize that traditions and things like that are so important. But there was another part of my family, was my mother's parents, my grandparents.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, him and I was there every weekend.
Yeah.
And I was treated very well growing up. But my grandfather and I played pool together, billiards,
Wow.
and for 3 hours a day.
Wow.
Something that we did, and
That's extraordinary.
To this day, there's a picture of a snooker table behind me, right?
Yeah.
To this day, I think back to those 10,000 hours. Remember, excellence is 10,000 hours. Well, I have hundreds of thousands of hours on a pool table or a snooker table.
Amazing. That must have got you very close to your grandfather. I mean, spending all that time together was amazing.
Very close to actually all of my grandparents were very close, but I remember, almost every weekend we were there at my grandparents', and they were in Hamilton, and we would travel there, and I just remember that so vividly. And I'd go downstairs and practice, and he would come down. He was always whistling. He's always in a good mood. My grandfather was always in a good mood.
That's awesome. What a great memory.
You think back, and you don't think much about it when you're young, but when you go back and reflect on it, the people who had an impact on you. My dad, I remember, this is a story. We grew up in the country, so we had a fort, and it was made out of pallets, and it was in a sod farm.
Wow.
And we would go there every couple of days, and we would, as growing up in the country, you build these things, right?
Right.
So the farmer realized we were in there. We were taking our bikes in. And what he did was he decided to string one piece of barbed wire around the property, including the entrance.
What?
And we're on bikes. So I'm taking a friend that had never been there before. And I was like, hey, Tommy, it's this way. And I remember riding my bike in. Well, I hit that barbed wire, and it came right above my handlebars.
Dang.
So naturally, it hit me here, and it hit me in the stomach. And it was the summertime, so there was nothing hiding between the barbed wire and me.
Yeah.
And I drove home on my bike, and I was holding. You remember the Terminator when he opens his arm? I was holding my arm in, and I pulled in to the house. And I'll never forget my dad, because my dad taught me so much. He's like, here's a towel, get in the car, I'll be there in a moment. And of course, my mom's like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
My dad was cool. And I'm looking at him, and, it's just shock for me, right? And he's like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
Amazing.
And again, you don't think of it in the moment, but you look back and say, what was it about my dad that transferred to me was stress and worry does not serve us. It doesn't. And he was so calm in the moment, and I was all stitched up, and the doctor said if it had gone any deeper in my stomach, I would have died, like a millimeter.
My gosh.
And I remember that. I still have the scars today. You don't think about it till a guy like George Watson says, hey, we're going to talk about your childhood. and that really popped up. That was really important.
That's just a really powerful lesson. I mean, there are many people that when things go sour, they freak out and they go off the deep end. And look what your dad instilled in you, and that's an amazing gift for life.
Yeah, and
to have that calmness of mind.
You go back to that. Every person is a teacher to you. You think back and go, it was the way he handled that.
Yeah,
I'm sure inside he was like, okay, we got a problem, it's an issue here, and this is in the '70s. You're like, hey, shake it off, kid. Shake it off. Go lie it. Don't go walk it off.
Yeah,
something like that. He knew the urgency of the situation, but just how he handled it. I was like,
that's really cool.
Interesting, yeah.
So, what about schooling? What kind of school did you go to when you were younger, growing up?
Well, we go go to the elementary school, and I
Yeah.
was always an athlete.
Oh, okay.
I think I ran 100 kilometers in 11 seconds.
So PE was your favorite subject in school, would you say? If you want
Uh,
to call it a subject.
what's favorite?
I don't. Your favorite subject in school?
Mm. Well, I love geography,
Oh, okay.
but I also loved art, and
Awesome.
it was amazing to me. Like I liked everything. Math was not my favorite, but I loved writing. I loved English. Um, I always found I wanted to be good at a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But when I got into high school, I was a big artist, and some of my pieces, and a lot of people don't know that about me. Is that
What kind of art did you do? Like, is it
I did
painting
fine.
or?
I did fine acrylics, watercolors,
Ah, okay.
a lot of nature. If you know anything about art, Robert Bateman
Yes, love him.
was one of my favorites, and I did a lot of Bateman style paintings. And again, I take it for granted, but then you look back, and some people go, "These pieces were amazing." I had pieces in art galleries.
Wow.
I never really thought much about it, but then I went into high school, and you start to actually take classes, and you start to learn.
Yeah.
But I remember the one thing that really impacted me in high school, that really it kind of declares who you are today, and it goes back to actually the work that we always did in Dale Carnegie in courses, where we would say, what's a defining moment? And I
Right.
always remember people like
Yeah.
you got to really think about it. But I remember a defining moment for me was when I was asked to do a play. And we had done plays through high school, but grade 12 to me was the big aha moment, where we had 30 people in our English class, and we were to write a play. Now,
Wow.
of course, I'm a boy, I'm a teenager, so I have to write a play about the demon barber of Fleet Street,
Of course.
right? The demon, the demon barber of Fleet Street, and all this stuff. So I'm writing this play, and next thing you know, the entire class, except for 3 people, are in this play.
Wow. The one you wrote?
Yeah, I wrote it with a couple of friends, but we were, and I remember it was I was
Incredible.
Williams and my friends was Watson, and we came in from the back of the gym with a lantern. Oh, hells, I think we've wandered somewhat off the beaten path. Quite possibly, Watson. I'm writing people in as prostitutes to stand on the stage, and at that point I realized, number one, I love drama, as you could probably tell.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
number two, and I've often said this when leaders are identified in companies, I often say, what is it about you that you were identified as a leader? And that, to me, in high school, was the moment that I looked around and said, I think I have leadership capabilities. And I was always involved in sport, and I was always part of every group in high school. High schools today, they're like prisons. You have these groups of people.
Yeah.
And I was always part of the artistic groups, and I thought the library group was fascinating, and I always loved volleyball.
So you never excluded yourself from any group?
No, I was always very friendly.
That's interesting. That's how I know you today. Like that stands true who you are today. Like I've come at you with many different ideas about things, and you're accepting to hearing them. And then I love it. You go, no, not interested. But that's really amazing ability. A lot of people don't have that. You'll start telling something that they don't agree with, and they'll start shaking their head right away. Part of that's training, but I think you were like that from very young age.
Well, I think it strengthens our adversity to failure. I think
How so? How so? Tell me about
I think
that.
it strengthens our adversity to like failure and difficulty.
Yeah.
And so today, that's an issue. Is especially with younger people. Is
Right.
What is your relationship to adversity or failure? And I never really realized, but I was programming that through because I was involved in so many groups, and I carried that through to university. To have the ability to be engaging in any friendship group. So I never really picked one. Now, of course, this is the 80s, so I was a metalhead and all this, it's like, oh, this band's great, your band sucks. But then as you get older, you become more and more, you have more appreciation for different music.
Yeah.
And like even today, just before this call, I had Vivaldi on.
Nice.
Classical music. If you ever want to be productive in an office, play classical music, and it gets harder throughout the day. Okay, I got some crazy stuff on, but But I remember that in high school, and I thought a lot about this, thinking back when you asked for this, for this interaction was, I would say I always was part of every group. I tried to the best.
Yeah.
Which means I didn't judge.
Yeah, that's true. That's awesome. So you graduate from high school.
Yeah.
Did you know what you wanted to do? Was it no, like everyone else? No. So what were your dreams and goals? Did you have anything forming, or just get to the next level college, or like, I don't know, what will you tell me?
No, it was when I graduated high school, I had a football scholarship for Laurier.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, and on that route, I went to training camp with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They took all of the university scholars and brought us together and did some coaching with us. And I realized that in high school, I was a gifted athlete. At Tiger Cat training camp, I was like everybody else. So I went to Laurier on a football scholarship. And but what I realized was, because I didn't grow up from a lot of wealth.
Yeah.
Because I actually paid my own way through university. And I'm not saying I didn't get help from my parents. Were very, very helpful with, of course, I'm like 200 pounds, 6'2". My parents gave me what's called care packages, which were boxes of food.
Yeah.
When you go to university, you get a food card that's supposed to last you all year. Well, mine lasted till October the 12th. So I was a growing kid. But then when I went to university, I realized that the real reason I was there was not because of football. And I had been a big rugby player as well, and we played some rugby at Laurier. Our T-shirt was great. It said, "Our drinking team has a rugby problem." And but so I went through university, but what I became very focused was self-motivation. And I realized very quickly that universities, it's not like high school. They don't take care of you. You're on your own.
Yeah.
And so I made my way through classes, and I took some art, and I love geography, geology, urban planning, which is where I went into. But there was something that happened to me in second year. My roommates were working in the student bar, the student pub. And at Wilfrid Laurier, it's called the Turret, is the big bar upstairs. And then downstairs, there was a small cafe called Wilf's. It was more of a higher end kind of sit down place.
Wow.
And I worked and managed that bar right through university.
So that's how you made your money to carry on.
Well, it was a great experience for me, because everyone working at the bar, we said, "Hey, you're making money while your friends spend money."
Yeah.
That got me into the business world. Was, hey, I can pay my way through school by serving. And of course, if you've ever been in a university bar experience, we were still enjoying the beverages of the night. Like it would be, we would close the bar at 2:00 in the morning and stay there till 4.
Wow.
We were called the Nighthawks, the Laurier Nighthawks. And it was a big thing to be part of that group. But it taught me business. It taught me how to deal with people. It also taught me the effects of alcohol.
Yeah.
And the dangers of alcohol, because in the mid 80s, there was a student at the University of Guelph who had unfortunately passed away, had overconsumed, passed out, and choked to death. And that was the start of what today is known as server intervention, or smart serve and all that. So we went through that major change in the 1980s, where these university bars were packed with people, and we had to back it off. So even to this day, you asked about my daughters. My one daughter, Elizabeth, she just graduated the University of Guelph, and my other daughter went to Sheridan College. And both of I was like, "Are you guys going out? What are you guys doing?" And I remember Elizabeth telling me, "Dad, we need 85s to stay in our program." At university today, most universities are a minimum 85 to stay in your program.
Wow.
And she said, "There's no partying, at least for the first 2 years."
Amazing.
And I find that today is now the competitiveness of post-secondary.
Yeah.
Now, third or fourth year, when you're pretty much in the program to graduate, they're going out, but not to the extent we used to. I snuck into Laurier with like a 74 average.
Wow.
That would be laughed at today.
Yeah, it's true, actually. Yeah.
And even to this day, I think about university. I think about what it really taught me. And I'm going to save my comments for a little bit later. And as you know, I teach right now at the college.
Yes, definitely.
To me, the college is a different experience because it's teaching applied.
I remember you told me years ago we were talking about, when we were working together at Dale Carnegie training, you said, someone dissed me because I didn't have a college education. You said, college, the only thing I learned at college was how to drink.
Well,
so true.
You think about it
how
now.
to party.
Yeah, for me, college today is teaching students confidence and leadership, and knowing that most interviews are over in less than 30 seconds.
Wow.
So it's that ability to walk in a room, because the college university students today are competing with tens of thousands of graduates.
That's right. Yeah.
And so what would make them stand out? What's the edge? It's their attitude. It's their ability to sell themselves and their ideas. And I think back to university, and they never taught me leadership. It was never taught leadership. I took classes where I was involved in groups and presentations, but there was never a formal leadership program. Today, the universities and colleges understand that.
That's true.
And even the high schools are now teaching this.
It took a while, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, so what about your work? So you did, after university, when did you meet Andrea? Tell me about that. Did you meet her at university?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. Andrea's brother, he and I went to school together, and he was a manager with me at Wilfrid Laurier. And I remember I actually wasn't managing one night. I was working the door, and it was Halloween. And of course, I'm dressed up as Jason, like some scary thing, whatever.
Of course you are.
This cute girl come up, and she was a bunny in a hat. and Glenn, who's now my brother-in-law, came over and said, "Neil, I want to introduce you to my sister. This is Andrea." And that was 1990. Wow. We have been together ever since. It was
amazing.
Just that instant. And I believe in love at first sight. I really do. It was that instant thing, and we had, we were both renting, and we got a place together, and we lived together in Waterloo, and then we moved back to Hamilton, and that's when my working world started. We were back in Hamilton, and Hamilton's a steel town. It's not pretty, but it's.
So this is after university.
Yeah. So I did my undergraduate at Laurier. I went to Waterloo. University of Waterloo, where I started my master's. Yeah. And I worked through a lot of my master's, but I really had a tough time writing after doing my undergraduate thesis. Wow. My master's thesis was a challenge. So I got into the working world, and then Andrea and I basically said, let's move back to Hamilton. And that's where my working world started. And she's always been a very big impact on my life. He's always been very good at saying, "Let's do this. Let's kind of try this." And I'm more conservative, and she is much more driven.
That's amazing. Yeah, I find the same thing with my wife. I mean, probably like me. I mean, I'd be nowhere if it wasn't for my relationship with my wife. Like I'd be somewhere, but nowhere near where I am now.
I was reminded this week by a colleague and someone I respect very much. He said, behind every successful man or behind every successful woman is a good spouse or a partner.
Absolutely.
Who believes in what you're doing. They understand what you do, and you can communicate it. Right? You can communicate. It's not easy. Andrea runs the back end of my business now.
Wow.
So she's good with the numbers and organization, and I'm not. I'm not that good at that stuff.
So you're in Hamilton, and when did you guys get married? Was it shortly after that, or?
We got married in 1993.
Wow, so you dated for 3 years, lived together, that sort of thing. Yeah. Then 93, and when did you?
93. Now, at the time, I was working in Mississauga for a company called Movers International.
So you're a moving guy.
Movers International. Well, we actually moved the Queen. So we were an international moving company of probably the highest quality in the world. There was us and Michael Gerber from the UK. And I started in the warehouse because it was the recession of the 1990s. So I could have used my degree and gone to Sudbury to study wolf populations. There wasn't a lot of jobs. So I got a job in a warehouse, and I was always a hardworking person, and I was very mechanical because working through the truck shop with my dad,
Makes sense.
I became a truck mechanic, and I worked on vehicles. And when I went to university, my job every summer was Hamilton Hydro. And I worked every summer. So that taught me how to work with my hands. And that was a great experience. You don't think about it at the time. So I go to Movers International 2 years. And Hamilton is about an hour out of Mississauga with traffic.
Wow.
And I'd be in the office 6:30 in the morning. And then going home, if you know anything about Toronto traffic, you don't go home between 4 and 6. That's stupid.
No, it is stupid.
And I'll never forget. So Andrew and I were engaged. And we were grocery shopping one night. And I fell asleep on the cart. Like on the cart.
Oh my gosh.
I realized that was the moment that someone said to me, "What are you doing?" And I didn't think anything of it until the next day I went in to Movers International, and they said, "Neil, we'd like to see you in the office after hours." And I walked in, and
that's always a wonderful request, isn't it?
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on. So I walk in, my manager Neil is there, and the general manager Roy, and the CEO, and the vice president, and the CFO are standing in a room. And I walked in, I go, "Hi." And here's what they said. They said, "You worked really hard, and we like you. You're smart." I go, "Okay." I'm 23 years old. I'm like, okay. Yeah, 23 or 24, something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And they said, "We would like to move you to Vancouver to run our operations."
Wow.
Movers International had 11 branches throughout North America. Vancouver was one of them, besides Toronto, Montreal, Calgary,
right,
all the major cities. So I was like, okay. So I'll never forget this. You want to talk about the universe aligning? I'll never forget this. They go, okay. They go, "We want you to think about it. We want you to go home, talk to Andrea. How about 24 hours? I'm like, okay.
Who knows?
I'll never forget. I drive home. I said, "Andrea, I have an opportunity. Do you want to move to Vancouver?" And she said, "It's funny you say that. Andrea is working for a customs brokerage who was looking at starting up a branch in White Rock, British Columbia, at the border of Maine, Washington."
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Yeah, so I came back the next day. I'll never forget. I came back the next day. I walked into Roy and Neil's office. "I'm in. I'm in." So we flew out there. They let us rent a car, but they go, "We want you to go out there and just check out the town." No, we went looking for rentals. So we ended up, which is where you and I often talk about, is White Rock, and we ended up in one of the most beautiful areas of the world.
Oh my gosh, it is gorgeous.
British Columbia, White Rock, and I was there, and I was in the operations there in Vancouver for just about 3 years.
That's amazing. So yeah, that was before you were 30 years old.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. You think about it today, like I don't know a lot of 24-year-olds that would be given that kind of responsibility in a company.
Well, think about the age.
Yeah.
Think about where it came from.
Yeah.
University. What does university teach you? George?
How to party.
No, you're so smart. You're one of the smartest.
There you go.
Person. Right.
So yeah, well, you're talking about the age and where you're at as far as thinking. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Most 24-year-olds today are not wrong ever. They know everything.
How many university graduates do we know that are really smart people, but they have a personality of a pencil?
So true.
Right? So I'm in Vancouver. I'm working for this company, to which I've only been around for a couple of years. I didn't really know a lot. Right? And I worked hard, but I struggled because I was managing about 18 people.
Amazing.
In the operations, and I was managing trucks and exports, imports, arranging deliveries. Yeah. I was and again, our clients in Vancouver were very, very wealthy people.
Yeah.
So I could always deal with customer service, but managing the guys, and if you know anything about Vancouver, the work ethic's different than Toronto. Like it's Toronto's go. Vancouver's like, wow, go to the beach. Right?
Yeah. Well, it depends, but yeah.
Yeah. And then, probably the biggest lesson I learned was I got a call I'll never forget, it was Darlene Hassel. Darlene was the HR director at Movers International, and every manager at Movers International took a Dale Carnegie course.
Oh, wow.
Every manager.
That was just it across the board, hey?
So they called me and said, Neil, we would like to offer you a Dale Carnegie course. And my first response, as many people's response is, I don't need a public speaking course.
Yeah.
Right?
True, yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll do it, because you don't say no, because in this company, if you turn something down, it doesn't come back around. Very corporate.
Yeah.
So you asked me for a life lesson. Well, here it is. So I go to the Dale Carnegie course, and if anybody's on this call who has had the pleasure and the life experience of a Dale Carnegie course, at that time was 14 weeks long. I showed up every night, and boy, did I act my way through that course. I won 3 pens. Pen awards were really big back there, and I won the highest award for achievement.
Yeah. Boom.
Gotcha. But my business performance didn't improve.
Yeah.
It didn't improve. And it was January the 12th, 1996, or maybe 97. Andrea and I are driving back to Ontario with Elizabeth in the back seat of our car, and she was 2 years old. January, driving across country from Vancouver.
Wow, that's quite a trip.
Well, we hit our first snowstorm in Spokane, Washington. And you know the mountain passes.
Yeah.
Trucks were pulling over to put chains on.
Yeah.
I'm driving Chrysler Intrepid. I had to. You couldn't stop. You couldn't.
That's freaky.
So we made it. We hit 2 snowstorms, but I was in a hotel room in Big Timber, Montana. I'll never forget this. Big Timber, Montana. And we've all watched the movie The Shining.
Yeah.
This hotel had that feel.
It's very reminiscent of that, yeah. Wow.
Nobody in the hotel, this giant thing off the highway.
Incredible.
And I'm in the hallways, I don't know, to get ice or a bag of chips, and I went through the wrong door, and I was standing, luckily the door didn't close behind me. I was looking out, and it was just snow and this forest, and I'm like, this place is haunted. I get back to the room, and Elizabeth is bouncing on the bed, and I was crying. So I'm on the edge of the bed because I had failed, and no one had ever prepared me for that. And
so when you said you'd failed, what had been going on in the business where you were at that place? Like,
I didn't know what I was doing.
And it caught up with you. And
don't get me wrong, they're wonderful people. I got lots of but
this isn't about them. This is about what you're going through.
Corporate environment, there's a lot you need to know how to do, and quite frankly, I didn't have the experience.
Yeah,
but, they saw something in me, but and I go back to that Dale Carnegie experience, and as I'm on the end of the bed, we're moving across country to live in my brother-in-law's basement.
Wow,
about $4,000 in the bank. And Andrea had.
Did they let you go, or was this?
No, they kind of let me save face. It's one of those. Right?
Okay.
The letters had come, and if we don't see, and I tell you, it killed me.
Yeah.
But I'm on the edge of the bed.
I get it.
Edge of the bed. Andrea came over, and she gave me this. She handed this to me. Not this copy, but she handed this book. Now you'll more recognize it as this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So she goes, why don't you read this? I'm like, what? She goes, well, you went through the course. You didn't really go through it, because that little bugger was reading it when I was at the course. She was going through everything.
I can totally get that.
Andrea,
yeah.
So now this copy is from 1935. And if you know anything about this book, this is one of the very first editions.
That's amazing.
It was given to me by a friend. So I was like, what do you mean? She goes, why don't you actually read the book? That moment is the most defining moment in my life.
Amazing.
Because I moved back to Ontario, and we decided to make it like, what's the worst that could happen, right?
Yeah.
And we moved back to Ontario, and I restarted my life, but I I really dug into the lessons of like this is one of those top selling books in the world.
Yeah.
It's the most downloaded book on the internet today.
That's right. Besides the Bible, it's the most best-selling book.
Yeah, and the Guinness Book of World Records and the Boy Scout Manual. But I'm telling you, George, I dug into it and I took the principles to heart. And then I realized what it was really trying to teach me, which is really what a Dale Carnegie course is about. It's about articulating yourself and communicating. And the very skills I had struggled with, but I had ego.
It was getting in the way, right?
To this day, and it's not university. You guys, it was university, that's what they teach. It was me. And I came back to Ontario and I made a decision. I took a stance that I was going to live this.
So this is your first reinvention experience, really.
Reinvention.
Bar none, right?
Kicking and screaming.
Yeah, you're going one way and then the intervention. I think it's extraordinary. Out of everything that Andrea could do or say, she hands you this book.
Oh,
it's really extraordinary, isn't it? It's amazing, man.
Very difficult. And so now I carry this with me. So I came back and, I regrouped. I joined an equipment company where we had, 35 excavators. I didn't know anything about excavators. Yeah. But for a couple of years, we were doing a lot of demolition, ram, like a lot of construction. And that's when I learned boots and a hard hat. And I loved it. And then I got into the equipment business. But that whole time I was thinking, I wonder if I could teach that Dale Carnegie course.
So that's an amazing thought. Mm-hmm. And you had that thought during this, when you were working for this company?
Yeah. Well, I had carried the principles with me. So I always saw the importance of human relations.
Yeah.
Building rapport, trust, respect.
Were you teaching? You must have been teaching it already to think that. You must have been sharing with people.
I can't say. I was using it. I would pick a principle a day.
Yeah.
And I would consciously use
Smile, number 5.
Smile, arouse and eager want. See things the other person's point of view. So I became very good at business development, sales. We ran an entire rental company. I was on site. But I always said to myself, I'd love to teach. Because when I was in Waterloo, I taught climatology.
Oh, nice.
I always loved teaching. And that even today at Niagara College, I love teaching.
Yeah.
And it keeps you young. It was really, really important time in my life to realize I wanted to teach. And that's how my Dale Carnegie career started, where you and I met.
Yeah. That was, when was that, 2000?
2000. It was 2000.
2000, there you go.
2004.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And, what it takes to become really certified to be a Dale Carnegie instructor, make my master's look like a watercolor class.
Why is that? What's involved in that?
The psychology of people.
Huh.
Right now, we called ourselves business coaches. And I'm like, okay, nobody knows what coaching, you and I always talk, nobody knows what coaching really is.
I know, it drives me crazy.
Coaching.
Yeah.
But the psychology of working with somebody, and you take them to the very edge of a breakthrough and 2 steps past, but you grab them and bring them back. So I've always used this as a great analogy. And I've always talked about the elastic.
Yeah.
Right. So most of us, in working with, a coach or a mentor or whatever, we are, you get stretched, right? So believe it or not, most of us get stretched, right?
Yep.
Well, in business worlds, because we don't like change, we stretch like this, right? Or you have a vision, current reality, and, tension seeks resolution, all that stuff that you and I teach. In a Dale Carnegie course, you're stretched like this.
That's true.
Knowing that this elastic wants to go back to its original form.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, every time you stretch this elastic, it will not go back to its original form until eventually it breaks. But we used to stretch in a Dale Carnegie class, and people come out of that room, and I get calls at 11:30 at night. You just changed my life, and these are professionals.
Yeah.
You just changed my life because I realized that I'd never really been coached, and the stretch. So what you had to be trained to interrupt people, but not to damage people, because you can damage people.
Yes.
And I saw some Dale Carnegie instructors who wanted to be instructors because of ego. They wanted to look good in front of groups. No. That's not what makes a good Dale Carnegie instructor. It's somebody who's completely there for other people's breakthroughs. It's not about you.
Yeah.
And you don't care what people think or what you look like. You're on the floor, scrubbing the floor to do clean and glow, and you have the whole room doing it with you. And we be like, at the top of our lungs, act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic. And people kind of look at that. You can't look at it from the outside because it looks goofy. But the people who are in the course that say to you after about week 11, but this is the greatest experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
You never get a drug like that. And then people say, why did you teach Dale Carnegie? And I said, well, because I needed it. I needed it as much as it was about dealing with people. And
That's so true.
To this day, isn't it true though? It's human relations and how you deal with people.
Oh,
the most important skill set anybody has.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I cringe sometimes and I see how people deal with people. It's like, oh my gosh, some leaders. And that's, one of the commitments we all have. We all have commitments inside of us that drive us. And I think you and I have a like commitment to want to make a dent, an impact, and have business be done. It doesn't have to be done as sloppily and as horribly as it is done today. Normally speaking, it can be done with so much more finesse and joy. And you can contribute every day to your employees' lives. I mean, it doesn't have to be like how everyone thinks.
Well, even
like normal.
Even today, people say, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, strategic doing." Like, well, what does that mean? I said, "Well, planning is easy. Strategic planning is easy. It's doing." And then I referenced Peter Drucker. He said, "Your culture will eat your strategy for breakfast." So you have the best strategic plan in the world. If marketing doesn't trust accounting, you're done, right? The 5 dysfunctions of the team, Patrick Lencioni. The first dysfunction is an absence of trust.
Yep.
So companies today that succeed are companies, number one, that are going to attract future talent as the boomers retire.
Yeah.
And now we have the Gen Zs coming in. If you thought the millennials had attention spans of squirrels on crack, wait till you meet these Gen Zs. They're the tablet generation. Their expectations are different. So now what you're doing is you're creating a working environment that's culture driven, not strategic driven or financially driven.
So listen, in your work with leaders, can you give me a story of, you don't have to name names, of course, but a couple stories where you really significant things that, I mean, they changed them, but they also changed you. What were some highlights from your career in working with Carnegie that you can think of?
One thing I did with Carnegie is I enrolled teams, not individuals.
Yeah.
So this team came in one day, and I can't share the name of it for privacy, of course, but it was a tool and die company. And they had come in the course with their management team and already great leaders. They're great leaders.
Yeah. But
here's what they were facing. They were in the die business. So the big dies are the big presses and the great big, Magna, stack poles, all those.
Wow.
And they were in that business, and they were competing with the Chinese in the early 2000s. And the Chinese were buying the steel, making the dies, shipping them cheaper than they could source the steel.
Amazing.
But we came together as a group, and we set a vision. And George, I'm a big vision guy.
Yeah.
And vision is a very clear picture of where we're going. And I don't mean some vague platitude banner on a lobby wall that says you're going to exceed clients' expectations and we're the industry's number one choice. That stuff is barf.
Yeah.
Or worse yet, today it's a banner on your website that nobody in your company even knows what it means. But we worked with this company. We made a declaration 3x5. We were going to triple the business in 5 years. Now, to do that, we had to change the business. Now, the business has been around since the 1940s. It was a third generation business. So there's a lot of history, right?
Yeah.
The part with history is we've always done it this way. We've been successful. I've got a client right now that says, we've been successful for 30 years. I said, no.
So this is a third generation business?
Third generation business.
Do you know there's only a 3% chance of a third generation business ever succeeding? I mean, that's extraordinary.
But they realized that tradition it doesn't mean you've worked 30 years one time.
Yeah.
Like they were like every year so they said we want to triple the business in 5 years. And to do that, they had to change the business to tooling. So they went pharmaceutical, medical, and military. And to this day, they did it in 3 years. Now, here's how they did it. We set a vision of a very clear picture where we're going. A computer in every home is a vision. I have a dream is a vision.
Yeah.
We will put someone on the moon, bring them back alive by the end of the 1960s. That's a vision. Mm-hmm. Steve Jobs, all of human knowledge on a handheld device. That's vision. So they said 3 by 5. Every person in that company, 45 people, wrote their own visions. They wrote their own visions of how it would contribute to 3 by 5. And in every meeting we had, every conversation was about how is this supporting 3 by 5. I'll never forget it. We had a journal that went around to every workstation. And every day it went to a different workstation. So if it came to your workstation, you had till the end of the day to document in the journal one thing you did to support 3 by 5. And we actually built this little frame around a roll of toilet paper. It was so fun. We wrote, "No crap allowed." This little roll of toilet paper in this journal went everywhere. So we created a war room where we collected all these examples. But what we did was we programmed the organization to think about where they're going, not just where they are.
Amazing.
See, the death of business today is playing a finite game in an infinite mindset. An infinite mindset is where we're going. This is Simon Sinek's new book. The infinite game is the vision. The finite game is quick responses. I quoted this a couple of weeks ago. My greatest fear, George, is that our employees are only changing incrementally at a time of exponential change.
Wow.
You know, think about 2020.
That doesn't work.
Exponential change on steroids.
Yeah.
And the companies right now that are succeeding are the ones who are changing exponentially.
Yeah.
But do people resist change?
Of course. Oh, well,
they don't. Human beings do not resist change. They resist the uncertainty of change that's perceived forced on them. So for us as leaders, we have to get very, very good today at explaining the why of the change.
That's
not
right.
The how. Have you ever had a meeting and then the best meeting happens in the hallway after the meeting?
Yeah.
People are like, I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
Amazing.
So to me, your ability to lead change is a skill set you have to have. The second skill set, which I love, because you know I study this.
So I want to ask you, this ties in with what I wanted to ask you about reinvention. What does it take? And so keep going, because I just wanted to frame it in those terms. What does it take to reinvent yourself? And do you have a process for that? And keep going, because you do. You're about to explain it.
Well, I do. So in 2008, the last recession, what's recession proof? Branding, time, understanding people at a deeper level. So I picked up a book on body language, Chinese face reading, a linguistic pattern. So what I did was, I was a Dale Carnegie guy in 2008, putting people in training programs. Naturally, the first thing that goes in a recession is the training budget. So I started getting into the web, started getting into social media, digital media, but then I started studying body language. And today what I realize is what most executives are looking for is, how do I become memorable? How do I read a room without hearing anything? How do I understand nonverbals and all the communications going on? So believe it or not, that's the kind of work I do today. So 2020 hits, it's the exact same scenario. What is pandemic proof? It's not going to define us, George. You and I both know that. This pandemic's not going to define us.
No.
And if I play the infinite game, this pandemic's just a bump in the road. I've never been busier than I am right now, because I've decided that companies realize it still isn't going away, but I still have to deal with the human side of business. I still have to manage the manager who's just been promoted from the floor, and she needs to actually engage and discipline the very people she works with. Those are humans.
Yeah.
So human skills are timeless. So today, one of the things I always look for in times of change is, and any business professional will tell you, look for the gap, like what doesn't exist in the marketplace. So for me, speaking has always been an important part of my business. Well, now it's virtual.
Yeah.
And there's more people now in these virtual calls than any room I'd ever be in.
That's so true.
I got asked last week to speak to 8,000 people on a Zoom call.
That's
what?
crazy.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to scroll through the screen and see who's there. It's just like, but that's the world today because we can't get people in a room.
Yeah.
The business is still there. So you and I are big reinvention people.
Yeah, definitely.
We're big reinvention people. I think it starts from the moment that you declare what you want to be known as and how you can invent what doesn't exist. Now, to do that, you have to be in the mindset. If you're in the mindset of lack, or the mindset of, oh, this is very hard, oh, the world. How many people have said to you, oh, it's really, really tough? How many people have said that to you? Oh, it's really, really tough.
Oh, man. Like lots.
Oh, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And I show up and I give him this book.
I love Frankel's work.
Okay, so this man survived Auschwitz.
I know.
And wrote modern therapy. Like this book, if you don't cry reading this book, you're an animal. You're a robot. He watched his family perish.
It's crazy,
I walk around with this now in meetings, go, how much stress are you under? I want you to, and they go, okay, hang on, it's all perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm telling you, it's all about reading, George. It's all about reading and being stronger than you are and working on yourself.
You know, I want to ask you this. What is your current philosophy of life? Because it changes as we grow and as we become, more informed human beings. Our philosophy of life, like my philosophy of life when I was 20, nowhere resembles my philosophy. Now I'm 51 now. It's like my philosophy of life is completely different. So tell me, what is your current philosophy of life?
I have two of them. And I've carried this. People often say, what's your core value, right? What's your core value?
Yeah.
Mine is, I influence every conversation I have. Number one. I've had a lot of people try and take that away from me. When I decided to open this business, the Thornton Group, it didn't come without some challenges. And I had, you and I are big quote people. And the quote that I still have today is, do just once what others say you cannot do, and you will never listen to their limitations again.
Yeah.
And as James Cook, the tough part with that quote is conflictual.
Yeah.
So I designed something that I've been teaching now in the college for 12 years. And I pulled this book out. Now you can tell how much I read this book by the actual color of the sleeve. It's bright yellow and this thing's like white.
Exactly.
This book is written by Benjamin Zander. And you and I have read this book many times.
Oh, yeah.
He's
one of my top 5 favorites.
He's the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic. But there's a chapter in here called The Practice of Giving an A.
Yeah.
And I would say if there's something I do more than anything, it's the practice of giving an A. And I'll tell you why. Picture this. I walk into a college class. There's 80 students in an auditorium. It's the first day. It's January 7th. I did it this year. I walked in the class. The first thing I say is, you all have an A. Congratulations. And they're all like, what? They're looking around. This guy's a goof. What? This guy's crazy. They go, you all have an A. Congratulations. You see, in this class, I'm not going to compare one student against another. I'm not going to compare you against a curriculum of any kind. This is a business marketing class. There is no curriculum. If I have a book that was written last year, it's already out of date this year to study big data and its impact on marketing. So I said, you all have an A, but everybody please grab a piece of paper. Go ahead, grab a piece of paper. And what is known as a pencil, everybody still remember that. I said, here's what I want you guys to do. On the top right-hand corner of the page, write April 25th. It's our last day together as a class. Start your letters with, Dear Neil, this is how I earned my A. So they write a letter. Now, George, you and I have read every book on motivation, personal development. These letters pale in comparison to any of those books. These letters are powerful. They're from real students, and they say, here's what I contributed, who I became, how I contributed to my teams, the leader I became, and they write these letters. And then halfway through the term, I usually say, hey guys, grab a piece of paper, tell me how you're living your A. And you can imagine the kind of, I'm still eating pizza, and like, I'm not sleeping, and like, I'm partying. I'm like, okay, are you okay with that? No, then fix it. So the end of the term, the students actually grade themselves based
Nice.
on how they're living their A. And all the students I've had, hundreds, I can maybe count 2 or 3 that graded themselves higher than what I would give them. 99.5% of all those students ended up grading themselves lower than what I would assign them.
Wow.
Now here's how you interact with the students, George. If they don't show up to class, they don't contribute, or they let a team down, here's what you say. Hey, George, how are you living your A? Now, I could pull your shirt over your head and feed you a few. It wouldn't hurt as much as, how are you living your A? And it stops people. So what I've decided is, this works with students. I use it with business people.
Yeah.
How are you living your A? You wrote your vision, your organizational vision. I just saw you yell at somebody on the floor. So do you want to start giving me some kind of a story of how busy you are? Let me look at my pillow and my blanket. It's story time. You can tell me how busy you are. Nobody cares how busy you are. This is what I learned from you, your actions were out of integrity with your commitment.
Yeah.
So what does that say about you? Is there something we should really be talking about now? Because that's what I love about George Watson, is you cut right through. You're like, what about you?
So listen, you work with these students, and what advice would you give for 20-somethings right now who are trying to make their way in the business world?
Practice how you walk into a room, because you're all on stage. Everyone.
Good point.
Practice how you speak. Practice how you listen. It's a skill set. It's like anything else. I love teaching 3D speaking. This is the first time I've ever sat down on Zoom or on this platform. It's the first time I've ever sat down. I'm normally standing.
Yeah.
For these.
You taught me that as well. I got a new standing desk, by the way.
The hands, like 3D speaking is, okay, George, here's what I want to cover off. 3 things. Number 1, and it's okay to let some silence in there. Let it do your heavy lifting. But your voice, you want to know how to attract an audience? Tell a story, get your voice in and out, your body language. I wrote a paper on how to elevate a virtual meeting. It's public speaking times 5.
That's awesome.
That's your energy. So, you know what I'm so happy about is the colleges, universities now see the importance of this. And they're teaching, speaking, and presentations. Like, I teach presentation skills to the engineering students in McMaster University.
That's incredible.
And any one of those students could stand with you and I and do a talk, an impromptu talk in the moment.
Amazing.
Like, so number 1, they're the most intelligent students in the world because they're engineering students.
Yeah. And
they can stand and speak. So now
that's a powerhouse.
The business schools are getting it. The accounting schools are getting it. That, hey, we can graduate accountants, but we could outsource their degree overseas for $100 a week.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hire you for your accounting acumen. I want to hire your ability to network and grow and build our business. I guess for a student, I often say, get good at sales. And you get this, right? Oh, I don't want to be in sales. Well, hang on. The definition of sales is the transference of confidence. That's the definition of sales.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all in sales.
Well, George, it's also 2020, which means today your brand now precedes you.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everything about you before they meet you.
That's so true.
We live in a world of transparent digital media.
Yeah.
So I tell my students, you better have a LinkedIn profile with more than 5 written recommendations, or you won't even be considered for a job. And you know what? 5 years ago, how many of you are on LinkedIn? Handful, 3 or 4 students. 3 years ago, how many of you are on LinkedIn? Half the class. Today, how many of you are on LinkedIn? Every single hand. Because they realize that their brand and their activity is part of the interview process.
Nice.
I would say to a student, how do you plan and intend to stand out? And that advice can go to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Tom Peters said, you either become distinct or extinct. The choice is yours. And he also said, if you don't like change, you like irrelevancy even less. I love Tom Peters. The guy was nuts, right?
Yeah, it's a good guy.
Those are great quotes. It's your ability. I would say the greatest business skill today is your ability to lead change.
Nice.
Which includes vision, a team, and urgency.
So tell me, what are you most grateful for in your life right now, looking back?
Andrea.
Nice.
No, don't even.
Don't even have to think about it. Think about it.
I've got 2 chocolate labs. I neck with them more than Andrea. But no, it's someone who's always been there.
That's amazing.
Always been there, and challenges, comes up with ideas.
Yeah.
And you ever think about this? Or you ever thought about that? And my desk is cleared every day.
So good.
Like my mind, right?
Yeah.
And that's her influence. I'm telling you, everybody has a partner, a friend, a best friend, whatever. Well, it's from this, right? It's the mastermind.
Yeah.
Right. Think and Grow Rich. Yeah.
So what are you up to now? Like, what are your plans for the future? What are you creating right now in your business, in your life?
Yeah.
What's
I'm
next?
I'm writing. So I want to write a book. I'm choosing to write a book. It's called Presence, Impact, and Influence.
Nice.
And it's about speaking and body language and about, reinvention, the work that we do. And because presence, impact, and influence, I think are the 3 key words in business right now. It's having that presence, to be able to walk into a room with confidence and comfort, but also humility, humble leadership.
Right.
Impact, leaving an impact, being memorable is what most people are looking for. And of course, your ability to influence other people, which comes from this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
True.
And so I think those skill sets today are more important than ever before.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So anyways, Neil, I just want to thank you for being with us today. This has been really neat, little bit of insight into who you are. How I usually end these interviews is I was a huge James Lipton fan. Never missed a Sunday. Did you ever watch James Lipton inside the Actors Studio?
Yeah.
Man, he was a great guy. And some of the most amazing. Yeah, he was a little scary. Amazing interviews, though, like he would really get into the world of these people. It's amazing. So he had the 10 questions, and that's what I'm going to ask you. So are you ready?
Keep them clean.
It's up to you, man. What's your favorite word?
Oh, it's, here it goes. I use it all the time. Freak.
That's true.
I don't know. I just use it.
It's a good word. What's your least favorite word?
Lazy.
What turns you on?
Oh, just being able to not have to justify yourself, not being afraid of failure.
What turns you off?
Lazy people. Or excuses.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, good music. The Four Seasons by Vivaldi. Oh.
What sound or noise do you hate?
People complaining. We call them BMWs, bitchers, moaners, and whiners. Oh my gosh.
What's your favorite curse word?
Oh, Scheisse. It's German. Scheisse. Scheisse.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I'd love to get into real estate.
What profession would you not like to do?
Accountant.
I'm with you on that one. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
We've been waiting for you.
Right on. It's been a joy, man. Thanks a lot for your sage advice. Everything that you said was amazing today. And for those of you, again, if you want to contact Neil, go to the show notes and go to thorntongroup.ca and contact him through there. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for being part of the program.
Much love, buddy. Thank you.